Our guest today is the president of the Chicago Transit Authority. He has served as general superintendent of the Chicago Park District. Our guest today also served twice as chief of staff to Mayor Richard Daley. He was elected to 2 terms as a commissioner of the Cook County Board. Our guest today is a graduate of Southern Illinois University and the University of Illinois College of Law. Ladies and gentlemen, Forrest Claypool. Forrest. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Somebody may show me how to use this. Thank you, Jay, for that kind introduction. I'd like to thank the City Club for this opportunity and thank all of you for coming out this morning so early. I'd also like to thank Mayor Emanuel for the privilege of being able to lead the CTA and to be part of his vision of reform and renewal of this world-class city. I'm particularly grateful for the support and guidance of my partner in this effort, Terry Peterson, the chairman of the CTA board. And I'd also like to acknowledge the CTA Transit Board members in attendance today, Alejandro Silva, Reverend Charles Robinson, Katie McLean, Jackie Grimshaw, for their service and leadership. Thank you. Former Milwaukee Mayor John Norquist, who's now a Chicagoan and head of the Congress on New Urbanism here in the city, explains with power how great cities drive human progress. Cities are dense. They attract people of great energy and talent in commerce and arts and science to live and work in close proximity to one another in order to share ideas and advance interests. And if you want to ensure that urban density survives and thrives, you need strong arteries of mass transit to carry people efficiently and conveniently to work and play, facilitating the easy interaction of neighborhoods and downtown. Quality mass transit is a linchpin in the job-creating, idea-creating, wealth-creating power of great metropolises like the city of Chicago. We are the second largest transit agency in the country and provide more than 1.6 million rides every weekday. That's well over 500 million rides a year. Beyond Chicago's limits, we serve 40 adjacent suburbs, and of course, many people from the suburbs take Metro and Pace into the city and then use CTA to get around while they're here. CTA provides more rides in 2 days than Amtrak provides nationally in a year. By any standard, these are impressive numbers. But throughout the years, while we've seen our ridership numbers grow, revenues have fallen to dangerously low levels. Costs have skyrocketed, and repairs for our century-old infrastructure have been woefully underfunded, further increasing operating costs while undercutting potential additional growth in ridership. To deal with this, the CTA has turned to borrowing, lots of it. That's the amount of money the CTA has borrowed in the past 4 years just to pay its day-to-day bills. These loans helped the CTA navigate the Great Recession. But despite the size and magnitude of these new debt undertakings, it still could not forestall a fare hike in 2009 or deep service cuts in 2010. And although the worst of the downturn may be behind us, revenues will never return anywhere close to the boom's peak, especially given the agency's reliance on the depressed real estate transfer tax and a sales tax that is based on the sale of manufactured goods, not services. These debts have now come due. There's no one left to borrow from. As a result, the CTA faces a $277 million deficit for 2012. Expenses are up $81 million next year alone, while revenues will fall by $196 million as borrowing comes to an end, leaving the agency with a $277 million shortfall and a $1.35 billion operating budget. This type of financial crisis didn't evolve overnight. So let's take a look at the many contributing factors that brought us to where we are today. Some of the CTA's current financial crises date back nearly 30 years. And with all due respect to my friend Alex Clifford here from Metra, the regional sales tax distribution formula that determines how the CTA is funded, for example, was established in 1983 and completely ignores both the number of rides and ridership capacity, of which the CTA provides 82% and 58% respectively, in exchange for just 49% of state funding. State of capital funding isn't much better. According to the Regional Transportation Authority's own analysis, the CTA has 72% of the backlogged repair needs in the region, yet the RTA allocates only 58% of federal capital dollars to the CTA, based on an ancient, unwritten handshake agreement by the power brokers of the day. This allocation has resulted in disproportionately high backlog of capital needs for the CTA. As part of city, state, and federal mandates, the CTA also provides more than $100 million each year in free and heavily discounted rides, with the financial cost of these programs growing. While the state provides $28 million each year to help offset the cost of its mandates, they do not even come close to covering their actual cost. Because of the large number of free and discounted rides, the average fare collected by the CTA is actually $1.60, not the advertised $2.10. Another subtle shift in costs in recent years flows from PACE's assumption of paratransit operations mid-decade. Under the CTA, paratransit costs increased an average of 13.7% a year between 2002 and 2005, but under PACE, costs jumped immediately. In fact, by 2007, costs had increased by more than 52% when compared to 2005. The last full year of CTA-operated paratransit. Costs have continued to grow each year, supported by RTA discretionary funds, which have historically flowed to the CTA. From 2007 through 2011, approximately $47 million in these RTA discretionary funds have been provided to paratransit instead of the CTA. The governor recently signed a bill that takes paratransit funding directly off the top of public funding for public transit, leaving an even smaller amount of discretionary funding for the service agencies. This will divert an additional $7 million annually from CTA to PACE. In addition, the CTA faces huge new and growing funding costs for pension programs and healthcare trusts and benefits. In addition to the permanent revenue impact of the Great Recession and its aftermath, the General Assembly in 2008, on the cusp of the recession, immediately it required the CTA to immediately and fully fund pension and healthcare trusts. To fund the changes, the General Assembly provided a 0.75% sales tax created for CTA, Metra, and PACE, as well as a 0.3% real estate transfer tax in Chicago for the CTA. Unfortunately, the new pension requirements of the law and the required attendant changes to the collective bargaining agreements with labor dramatically hike CTA expenses while failing to produce the projected revenue, as this chart shows. This line here was what was projected to be the revenues at the time of the healthcare and pension requirements and mandates. This has been the actual revenue that's come in, and this is the gap that's added to our annual budget each year. Approximately $65 million annually and growing. It growing by another $4 million next year in order to meet the actuarial tables. And while the CTA borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars during the Great Recession to accommodate rising costs and large permanent reductions in tax revenues, and while the 10% of the nearly 11,000 person CTA workforce that is not unionized took pay reductions, as well as a 5-year wage freeze that's still in effect. The 90% of the CTA workforce that's unionized received annual pay hikes reminiscent of good times. You can see, starting in 2007, 2 comparable union and non-union employees, and what's happened to their salaries in the ensuing period of time. In fact, when adjusted for the cost of living, CTA rail and bus operators are now the highest paid in the nation, by far. In fact, at the current rate of wage growth per agency, it will take New York City's bus drivers until 2024 to catch up to CTA's rate of pay. And it will take Los Angeles bus drivers until 2043, more than 3 decades, to do the same. Adding to the problems, work rule red tape costs the CTA millions. Archaic work rules are yet another problem of runaway costs. Unnecessary work rules cost the CTA tens of millions of dollars annually while hindering service to our customers. And CTA collective bargaining agreements prohibit competitive bidding for managed competition. And as a result, the CTA pays more than other governments or the private sector. For example, a privately contracted city janitor at O'Hare International Airport earns $18.48 per hour. His counterpart, serving the same part of the airport, just on a different level, earns $44.30 working for the CTA, a staggering 139% more per hour. And as many of you may see in the front page of today's Chicago Tribune, the report indicates and shows, and the data confirms, that rampant absenteeism costs the CTA at least $40 million annually. Absenteeism by CTA bus and rail personnel is 2.5 times the private sector average, and work rules tie the hands of managers in weeding out the abusers, as well as preventing us from rewarding the vast majority of workers who show up every day and work hard for our customers. As you can see here, we lose, in addition to the scheduled time off, which is more than a month, we lose an additional month off for each rail and bus worker through unscheduled absenteeisms. So the long-awaited 4-day work week has arrived at the CTA. Finally, much of the CTA's cost and revenue structure is a result of a dated infrastructure with significant portions more than 100 years old. 54 of 144 stations are past their useful life. 22 stations are over 90 years old. 52 are not accessible to the disabled. These aging stations cannot support modern demands. For the CTA to continue to serve its riders and make a contribution as part of the region's economic engine, it must upgrade, repair, and replace equipment and infrastructure. The CTA needs $10 billion just to achieve a state of good repair. With adequate capital funding, the CTA can invest in the transit system's future, decreasing operating costs, increasing reliability, and improving service. So as we prepare to meet these challenges, the CTA's first step has been to complete a full and thorough assessment of our management and operations, something that's allowed us to realize more than $25 million in savings in less than 5 months. By operating more efficiently, we're taking money out of bureaucracy and putting it into service and investing in our infrastructure. All of our early initiatives have been designed to do more with less, while improving the safety and convenience of our customers and the cleanliness and appearance of our buses, trains, and facilities. The safety of our customers is the first and highest priority of the CTA. In June, we announced plans to double the number of security cameras at stations and expedite their installation, providing increased security for passengers and more assistance for police. By December, we will have installed nearly 3,500 cameras at 144 rail stations. Just last week, a man was apprehended by the Chicago Police Department using images captured by CTA cameras to identify him. We caught the alleged perpetrator of the September 17th robbery at Harrison on the Red Line, plus 2 other Red Line robberies. So far this year, images captured from CTA security cameras have assisted in the arrest of individuals involved in at least 30 cases. On June 27th, we announced that we would enhance the police presence on the CTA by adding 50 full-time Chicago police officers to the existing force to supplement patrols of trains and buses. Adding these full-time officers will increase police visibility and their ability to deter crime where millions of Chicagoans spend their time every day. We've also worked very cooperatively and closely with Transit Commander Graber and Police Superintendent McCarthy to add rail saturation missions, highly visible teams of uniformed officers to deploy across the system, as well as more officers patrolling in plainclothes to crack down on thefts of phones and other electronic devices. In the absence of funding that would allow us to implement more sweeping changes, we're doing what we can to improve our infrastructure now by being more innovative and efficient. 2 weeks ago, we announced a program called Station Renewal that involves the cleaning and repair of 100 rail stations over the next 12 months. The crews performing the work, known as Renew Crews, are taking a comprehensive and efficient SWAT team approach to cleaning, repairing, and improving the stations, a huge improvement over the inadequate and piecemeal efforts of the past. The result is are more holistic changes that are noticed and appreciated by our customers. And to increase the convenience of our customers, we recently unveiled the first of 400 LED signs to be installed at select bus shelters throughout the city to increase the convenience of our customers. These bright, easy-to-read signs will display bus tracker estimated arrival times specific to the location of the bus shelters. The signs will be strategically placed at bus stops where high number of boardings occur and at busy transfer and connection stations. So this will allow people to answer the time-honored question, when is my darn bus going to arrive? The first 150 will be up by March and the full complement of 400 by September. This initiative will serve 80% of all bus shelter riders. In Chicago, transit is not simply an overflow outlet for those who would rather drive. It is for many a choice, their primary mode of transportation. It plays a critical role in settings where land values are high and space for new highway construction and associated parking needs is limited or non-existent. The goal of everyone at the CTA is to advance the ongoing efforts to rebuild the system, improve the product offered to customers, and deliver service that is on time, clean, effective, courteous each day. But a robust, modern transit system is just as important. It is not just important to our riders. It is important to the livability of the region and its ability to attract jobs and investments. An investment in transit is an investment in the future of the region. As we work through the many challenges that exist today and that lay ahead, we know that mass transit can help create more jobs, stronger neighborhoods, improve property values, and enhance the quality of life. But all these benefits of a vibrant, modern transportation system will not be possible if we simply carry on as we have in the past, if the status quo prevails. We will be asking everyone we work with, from our unions and employees, to our vendors, to our government and not-for-profit partners, to help us do business in a different way, one that is more rational, fair, and innovative, and which recognizes that we must make the difficult changes now that are required to provide the most and best transit for the most people in our great metropolis. Thank you for coming today and listening to me. Thank you.
Questions, Ginny and Brenda and Brad, be happy to pick them up. Please acknowledge Tom Byrne, Commissioner of Streets and Sanitation. Tom, where are you? Well, if you want to hide. Okay, get to questions. Moderator has one. Not a sort of a comment for all you professional reformers. Yesterday we had Ann Pramaggiore here talking about ComEd, which was started by someone named Samuel Insull. Today we talk about the rail system, of course, which was set up by Charles Yerkes. I wonder what they had in common. Boy, we need a more Chicago-oriented. Put it like this, Patrick Fitzgerald would have had a field day. Moving on, here we go. Reform, where is thy sting? All right. Sorry, Jackie, but you got to throw that out. I saw you there. I just couldn't let that pass. Questions? I think a lot of these people are looking for RFPs, but that's just my... Well, he quoted all those people. I'll quote Shakespeare. Cowards die many times before their death. The valiant taste death but once. What are you afraid of? All right. Well, we have Martha Jantra with a question that has tremendous general significance. This is called a sandbag, Forrest, but we got to do what we got to do. It's the only question I got. Practical question. If you have a reduced 30-day game pass, do you have to present your senior CTA card as well to the bus driver? We hit the key issues. He'll get back to you.
I don't think so.
This has never happened at a city club function. Well, normally it has to be in writing, but desperate men do desperate things. Who are you, and what's your question?
Hi, I'm Tim Cawley from CPS. What's an update on the accelerated trip in from O'Hare? Trying to do something to do O'Hare into downtown.
The question is about accelerated express train to the airport. Yeah, I know there are background conversations going on to determine whether or not there is a potential private support for such an enterprise. I don't believe that's something that the CTA would, a purely express premium service would do within our existing structure. It would have to be a public-private partnership where there would be investment capital and private vendors and the like. I've always believed, from our perspective, that the best express train to the airport is a better blue line, and our focus is going to be to remove slow zones and put better rail cars into service and improve the amenities along the way, so that we make that as pleasant and appealing a trip as possible, and one that's an alternative to being stuck on the highway.
Now, we're turning this into Q&A. Yes, stand up, speak loud, and what's your name? Go, it's you. It's only
Hey,
Carolyn.
Forrest, when you talked about the disparities in the distribution of our tier funding, it sounded like you were preparing for a legislative agenda and bringing these issues to.
Preparing a what agenda, I'm sorry? Oh, legislative. Is there a legislative agenda? That's premature to say. We've got a lot of issues ahead of us, but I think my point today was really more that there are deep historical roots to a lot of the fiscal elements facing the CTA, some of which may be can be addressed, some which can't or just will remain. I think the things that I want to focus on are the things that we know we can change, and from my perspective, the things that I hope we can change are working more closely with our unions in the upcoming collective bargaining agreements, to rationalize a system that's really not only hurting our customers and threatening the financial viability of the system, but also ultimately hurting the union members, because their jobs, as we saw in the last layoff, are affected as well, and that we have to really address these anachronistic, unnecessary work rules that cost the agency tens of millions of dollars a year for no purpose, which drain dollars that could be used for service. And we need to address some of the issues you saw on the screen today about the disparities between the CTA's wages and benefits versus other cities. But I think we're in a position, if we work cooperatively and understand that if everybody works together, we can provide solid service. The members can continue to have great jobs at great pay and great benefits. But it's going to require, I think, bringing the CTA into the 21st century in terms of how we're structured and how those relationships are defined.
Hey, I hate to use the word, we're getting a surge. Carl Hansen. Carl, where are you? Because of the limited questions, you're not a member of the City Club. This is, as I said yesterday, this is your mulligan. Since the CTA has automatic ticket machines, why are there also attendants in the old pay booths?
Just as customer assistance for those customers who may need to navigate problems or may not be as conversant with the normal commuters, and also to assist disabled riders when they need to be when there needs to be access to the rail requires the use of a board to help sometimes disabled riders. There's a whole series of things that they're there to be also to provide some added security. But we also have security guards as well, so there is some redundancy. Those are some of the things we'll look at. We want to make sure there's a presence there for both security as well as a helping hand. But as we're looking at everything in a very difficult budget, that's something obviously we'll be taking a close look at.
Okay. Sandra Verthine, is that close? Verthine. What revenue enhancements at the city or state would you support to provide more funding?
What revenue enhancements at the city or state would you support to provide more funding? Well, I think Mayor Emanuel has made a good point about the broadening the sales tax, cutting the sales tax, but broadening the base. I think that's clearly something that would benefit a lot of people with a tax cut at the same time that you're broadening the base. But how that would be worked, I realize that the devil in the details on those things, and I'm not a policymaker. I'm a hired hand of the Emmanuel administration, so I'm not going to opine on what the appropriate taxes or revenues should be or what is needed. But I think the problem is, as we've seen here today, is that the CTA is reliant on taxes that are very economic sensitive and that are not likely to return anytime soon to the levels that were experienced years ago. I mean, the real estate transfer tax is a great example. It was projected to kind of ludicrously projected even at the peak to bring in 125 million a year, and I believe it brings in 20. The sales tax, as I've indicated, is again services are vibrant, but you see the manufactured goods are still suffering in this economy. That's where the sales tax is based on a lot. So, I think a different mix of revenues would be something that would be helpful without raising anyone's taxes, or actually cutting people's taxes, as the mayor has indicated. And then I think issues like they're doing in other states, like Pennsylvania, for example, basically uses, and New York, understand that tollways and roads and transit are all linked together. So there's revenue sharing on tolls and those things. So I think there's examples around the country of ways you can support mass transit with a better mix of funding sources that also balance the region's needs in terms of roads, mass transit, tollways and the like. But again, those are the types of issues that only the mayor and the governor and the legislature can address. We're going to manage the agency as effectively as we can with the resources that we've been given.
Couple of more. Dory McWhorter, where are you, Dory? A City Club member. Crow Horvath, even give you a plug. Do you foresee using public-private partnership to address any of the CTA issues?
Well, I think a lot in other parts of the country, Denver, other places, there have been public-private partnerships that have helped to rebuild some of the infrastructure. In those instances, there has been operators, for-profit operators involved. That will not be the case with the CTA, but I do think that there is the potential to have private partners help us leverage the assets that we have, to use more innovative techniques like some of the modern design build that's been done in other cities, where the risk is shifted to the private sector, and say a building contract's brought in. Those projects have tended to come in more on time and on budget with huge savings than traditional mechanisms. We do have some assets that we're probably not as sufficient in terms of leveraging as others. So I think there's certainly a role for private sector assistance in the process. And I think given that what's going on in Washington with the Tea Party basically holding the transit bill hostage and arguing that investments in transit and roads and bridges is the same thing as increasing welfare spending, we can't look to Washington for help anytime soon. So we have to look to every potential avenue to provide resources to rebuild our system.
Couple more. We have enough now. Basta. Keith Kalinowski. Keith, where are you? You have a question? Raise your hand. DQC and a City Club member. Aren't you ashamed if you're not a City Club member taking advantage of this? My goodness. Here we go. When will the new rail cars be put into commercial service?
The new rail cars, we're still working closely with Bombardier, the manufacturer, have been for quite a while since I got here, on working out bugs and testing, and we've had a few running back and forth between New York and here, and we're getting closer and closer to feeling that the final glitches of what's a new generation of rail cars are worked out, and that we're comfortable putting them into service. So I think fairly soon is the answer, but we still have some work to do. I think any change will be controversial because the cars won't look exactly like the other ones inside, but they will provide more room and other amenities, and I think function at a high level. And so we're excited about the possibility of improving service with the introduction of those cars. But there's still work to be done.
This is from Dorel Higueros. Is that close? Coach. City Club member. How does the CTA plan to address the attendance abuse of bus and rail operators as described in today's Chicago Tribune article and in your presentation?
Well, first, that's part of the work rule changes that we're going to seek from the union. From a management perspective, from what we can control, we are going to institutionalize tracking and monitoring of those statistics as we've now done in our database, and we now have consistent systems that will do that. We're going to provide that information to our managers in the field. We're going to post it and monitor it. In fact, if you go to the City of Chicago's website today, you'll see those numbers posted, along with the numbers that Mayor Emanuel had pointed out with streets and sanitation a little bit before. We are going to make sure that given the rule book that we have, that our managers enforce it to the letter, and also find ways, frankly, to reward the vast majority of our workers who do show up every day, who do work hard, who do serve the customers. It is not in the interest of the vast majority of our workforce who are exemplary, to suffer from the minority bad apples of people that are, abuse the system, and so we have to deal with that. But we have work rules that are just absurd. It takes seven, as the Tribune article pointed out this morning, it takes 7 offenses to discipline someone out. But it has to be within 365 days. So if the 8th offense is on the 366th day, then it doesn't count. If there has been no-shows, that's another category. If there have been gross misconduct, that's a 3rd category. None of them relate to each other. In other words, a disciplinary infraction in one of the 3 categories cannot be used as a cumulative offense to deal with discipline in the other category. So the management has had its hands tied with work rules that not only impede service, as we saw in today's story, but cost the agency at least $40 million a year by having to have extra, what they call extra boards, to make up for the fact that on any given day, 20% of our folks aren't there. That is a huge cost. It's money that could be used to enhance service or forestall a fare hike, or help the employees who obviously have a good job and want to keep that good job. And it's a good job in this economy. It's a good job with benefits and opportunity. And we want to reward those hardworking employees who stand by our customers every day, not the ones who game a system with the help of ridiculous union work rules.
Some of the questions are duplicative, so this will be the last one. And by the way, if you are a CTA union leader, I wouldn't stand up. Last question. Anonymous. Normally we don't read these, but this is a very good question. Next time, Mr. Anonymous or Ms. Anonymous, put your name down here.
Are they a city club member?
They didn't say that either. I don't know what's going on. We got to tighten our work rules. Here we go. Forrest, can you give some examples, or an example, of the red tape work rules that hurt CTA efficiency? You just did that, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Well said. How about a big round of applause?